All right. Here we are, episode 271 of the In the Tank podcast. We are Justinless, we are producerless, but you know what? We're going to do it anyways because it's Thanksgiving. We should all be grateful for the things that we've got, including this episode of the In the Tank podcast.
That's right. This is a holiday bonus episode for all the listeners because we care about each and every one of you so much, especially Coach Mendoza.
Where you been at, man?
I don't know.
Yeah,
where is Coach Mendoza?
If anyone knows the whereabouts of Coach Mendoza, let him know that we were asking about him and tell him to make contact. We'll let him on the show. As always,
should just have, sorry, this is important,
No,
milk cartons with Coach Mendoza's face on them.
Yeah, I'll get on that.
I'm on this podcast and I don't know who the hell Coach Mendoza is. Imagine what our listeners are thinking.
Well, you haven't been on it long enough because he's one of our most reoccurring person sending messages.
Oh, okay.
As always, I am your host, Donald Kendal. Joining me today, I've got Isaac Orr, research fellow at the Center of the American Experiment. How are you doing, sir?
I'm a policy fellow, but thank you.
What did I say?
Research fellow. That was my title at Heartland. So, you know.
Gotcha. Okay, makes
He's moving
sense.
up in the world.
You're getting
Is that a move up? I don't even know.
That's totally sideways.
I just remember like getting the job at Heartland all those years ago and like policy fellow or research fellow. What kind of Nancy ass kind of job is that? And I was,
you took it.
I know, but I just like, I don't know. For some reason, I thought it sounded like kind of sissy, but you know, like now it's just like I understand that that's the way that this world operates.
Isaac Orr, Viceroy of Energy Policy at the
Duke of Energy Policy.
Right. The Baron of BS. Jim Lakely, VP of the Heartland Institute. How are you, good sir?
Doing great. This is week 2 of cutting the cord from cable. I'm not missing it yet. Got to tell you, I'm not missing it at all.
How about cutting the cord from the NFL, Jim?
Yeah. Cut it off.
Let's not go crazy. Come on. Now.
We would really believe your convictions if during a 8-0 season for the Steelers, you were just 10-0 season for the Steelers, you were just end it.
See, yeah, anybody can boycott when your team sucks, but it takes real conviction to boycott when your team is undefeated.
Yeah.
No sale.
That's true.
No sale.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right, so yeah, this is Thanksgiving week. You know, there's this Thanksgiving. We're recording this on Wednesday, so Thanksgiving's tomorrow. You guys obeying, you know, the Cuomos of the world, and you're gonna shun yourself from society and not meet up with any family, or are you gonna go at it normal?
We're not having any family over, and we're not visiting any family, but it's not really much to do with COVID. I mean, you know, a lot of my family lives in, as you might imagine, the Pittsburgh area. And I thought I saw somewhere that the governor said that anybody who enters the state has to show proof of a COVID test within, you know, the last 72 hours and has to be negative. And I was like, what a hassle. I mean, it's ridiculous. And and nobody wants to do anything for Thanksgiving, but you know, that's fine. I'm the turkey master. I'm looking forward to making the turkey. We're going to have a great meal. It's my favorite holiday of the year, football and turkey and
which I'm boycotting
yourself. Yeah, good for you. Not me. Can't have Thanksgiving without football. So it's my favorite holiday. I always look forward to it.
So Pennsylvania governor, that's Tom Wolf, right?
That is right.
So what he's going to have? What he's going to have stormtroopers all along like the interstate, just stopping every car that's coming in?
I don't know.
It's out of state plates.
I don't know. Somebody sent me a text earlier today saying that I don't know. I didn't have a chance to check into it, but that the state of New Mexico has closed grocery stores because they're, you know, super spreader locations or something. It's like, you know, the world continues to go crazy over COVID, and you know, I'm just trying to unplug from cable so I don't have to look at it all the time and just enjoy life.
Isaac Orr, what you got going on? You gonna be eating yams out of a can just in your pajamas or what?
Canned yams. Sounds great. Actually, I went home to Wisconsin last weekend for my mom's birthday. We did like a mini Thanksgiving. So
nice.
Did
you cook a turkey?
No, we're all like, we don't really like turkey. We just eat it because we have to eat it for Thanksgiving. So we had chicken. It was good.
So, I mean, I keep hearing that vaccines weeks away, Any actual word on that, Jim? I think you probably pay attention to this stuff more than I do. I mean,
Well, yeah.
weeks away. What does that mean? 52 weeks away? Does it mean 2 weeks away?
I saw a headline just today, I think, that they said one of the companies that's making a vaccine said it could be ready in early to mid-December. So, before the end of the year, which something to be thankful for, and also something that Donald Trump said could happen and probably would happen, and nobody believed him. But here we are. In fact, I did a podcast with Anne-Marie Schieber, the managing editor of Healthcare News, just yesterday, and we talked about, as we have our Monday conference calls, as you might remember, Isaac, and just about every conference call, as Donnie starts to smile, turns into a rant of turns into a COVID rant. I can't take it anymore, and I go on a rant. And Anne-Marie goes on a rant. So I thought, hey,
I'm mad as hell.
That's right.
I can't take it anymore.
That's right. Let's do it. I want to do a rant for real on a podcast. And so we talked about COVID and mask policies and all of that stuff. And if you remember, Pfizer said that they didn't have anything to do with Operation Warp Speed, when it took literally 30 seconds to find a press release from them on their website that said, "Yay, we can't wait to participate in Operation Warp Speed." All just to not give Trump credit for it. So
and then they waited till after the election to announce it. Genius move on their part, though.
Right.
Like, they must not have liked the fact that he's like, "I'm going to bring down your prescription drug prices," and they're like,
"There
nope,
you go.
They're not."
Yeah.
So sucks to suck, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but if we're going to talk, everybody does, what to be thankful for, kind of themed podcasts and other things around Thanksgiving. But, it is something to be thankful for. If you think about it, literally a year ago, nobody had heard of coronavirus. In January, late January, the President Trump was being impeached. And coronavirus was so far away in the background noise, nobody was paying attention to it. And then we started learning about it, and it blew up in February and March, and we had lockdowns everywhere. And literally within 10 months, we have 3 competing and apparently effective viruses for a virus nobody even knew about not even a year ago. Sure. And you know how many coronavirus vaccines are effective in the entire world? Zero. That's how many. Exactly right. So this is an amazing accomplishment that we should be thankful for. And we should all hope that the virus means that we can get back to a normal life. That's what they keep telling us. I have a feeling they're going to change the goalposts again, and we're not going to be able to go back to a normal life, even with the vaccine. That's going to be a really interesting 2021 development, I think.
The vaccine is going to come out on December 23rd. And it's going to be a Festivus miracle. That's what I'm expecting.
The airing of grievances.
Yeah,
feats of strength.
Yeah, the Festivus is my kind of holiday. I can tell you. I'm a big time supporter of the airing of grievances. As listeners of this podcast know.
Yeah, we had an aluminum pole.
You live every day like Festivus, Jim.
Celebrate Festivus all year long.
Every podcast for him is an airing of
triggered every.
I keep the spirit of Festivus in my heart all year long. It's great.
Rand Paul's airing of grievances on Twitter is always something to look forward to, for sure.
For sure.
So 2020 has been, everyone, it's kind of, it seems like every year they're like, oh my gosh, this year has been terrible. I feel like they say that about every single year. 2020 is probably one that's like, all right, I think you're right this time. Yep. 2020 was kind of a nightmare for a number of reasons. But I think it's, a good thing to address some of the things that we're thankful for. We could talk about policy stuff. Obviously, we had talked about the election and kind of some of the results about that. But, just kind of looking back on Donald Trump's first term, I think there's some stuff that we can be thankful for. So I'll kind of start off. The fact that Trump got 3 Supreme Court justices in one term, it's kind of a miracle. I mean, that's probably like the biggest thing out there to be thankful for throughout the whole Trump term. Do you agree, disagree?
Oh, I would totally agree with that. I mean, let's just talk about a Festivus miracle. The fact that Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was a triple Festivus miracle. I mean, that was never supposed to happen. And
No.
he promised to be a disruptor. He was a disruptor, which is why he made enemies everywhere except for, the MAGA people. And when you make enemies, life's tough for you. But, Donald Trump has actually held tough all this time, and he has accomplished a lot. But just the accident, really, of him, you can't predict. You don't know when you're going to get Supreme Court openings. But look, imagine, as disappointed as many Trump fans may be over the election results that should be certified and will probably be with Biden certified, when the electors meet, I think, on December 14th to officially elect the president of the United States. Think about all that would have been different if Hillary Clinton was president. Think about the 3 Supreme Court justices she would have chosen. Think about the difference, the additional threats to our liberties that would be ever present for decades if leftists were put on the Supreme Court, because the left and the Democrats consider the Supreme Court to be a super legislature in which they can impose their will on an unwilling public. There's nothing wrong with, in theory, there's nothing wrong with promoting leftist policies. If you can get the people to agree with you, and you can pass legislation, and you can elect a president that will sign legislation to implement your leftist policies, that's the way the system is supposed to work. But the left, for the last 30 years or so, has decided to circumvent the people, circumvent the legislative process, and go right to the courts and impose their policies by fiat. And thank you, the electorate, for putting Donald Trump in the White House in 2016. And thank you, Donald Trump, for actually appointing Federalist Society approved conservatives. We'll see how long they stay conservative, but they at least have begun in their initial movements to seem to be adherence to the Constitution and the limits on government power. That's the thing about the left. They think there is no limit on government power. And so that's something to be extremely thankful for this year.
Yeah, I mean, 2016, I don't know if I know I've said this a billion times. I don't know if I've ever really said it on this podcast, but when that election night was happening, and Donald Trump started falling behind early in the election, and I never really paid attention because I always considered it a lesser of two evils thing, blah blah blah. So I didn't ever really care. And then 2016 happened, and Trump goes to a very early. He's trailing very early in the night, and I'm just like, I can't watch this. I can't watch liberals taking victory laps or whatever. So I turned it off. Ate dinner. I got a text message from my brother after I finished dinner, and he was like, "What is happening?" So I was like, "Uh-oh, what's happening?" So I turned it back on, and everything starts turning red. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I had resigned to it being a lost cause, at 6 p.m. I couldn't believe what was happening. So yeah, quite a Festivus miracle there.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what happens moving forward, we'll always have 2016 election.
We'll always have We'll always have that Young Turks video of
make 2016 great again.
Yep.
Isaac, Supreme Court justices, anything to add there? I mean, I kind of wonder, in the what if machine reality, if Hillary Clinton won, surely she'd have the Scalia opening that she'd have to fill. But then there was a conservative judge that stepped down.
Kennedy, yeah.
Conservative.
He was the swing vote. Yeah. So probably 2 for sure, maybe a 3rd.
But would he have stepped down then?
I don't think so. But I don't know, right? I think maybe he saw this as his opportunity to get off the court and just kind of live life as an old guy. And but who's the other? So you have
RBG.
Yeah, no, I know that. But so you had the RBG seat. You had I guess you have Sotomayor and Kagan. I don't remember the other person. Some old white dude who's a liberal on the court.
Yeah, not John Roberts, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, that guy, man, not that old, but also just disappointing. Maybe we would have seen, and this is really bad. I'm just going to Google this now because
that's fine. Hey, Google it up. But
they may have.
I mean, so what is it right now? If you consider John Roberts conservative, it's 6. Is it 6-3?
Breyer.
Stephen Breyer. Yeah, it's 6-3. So on the non-liberal side, let's just say that.
Right. Okay. So
I could have seen Stephen Breyer retiring, maybe, if he felt that he would be replaced. So it could have been 3 appointees for Clinton, but at this point, we'll never know.
Yeah, it would have been quite a what-if machine scenario there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like and maybe I should have prefaced this whole conversation with, hey, the views that are expressed during this video don't necessarily reflect the standpoints of the Heartland Institute or anything like that. But another thing that I always think about with like Donald Trump's first term is like they thought that like he was just going to start nuking people like left and right, that he was this wild card. And like when it comes to foreign policy, like you're going to let this guy have access to the red buttons and all of that stuff. And it turns out like he's been a dove when it comes to this stuff, relatively speaking. I understand there's probably a lot of libertarians that are listening to this that are like shaking their phones or radios or whatever they're listening to.
They're just seething.
Yeah. But I mean, like, relatively speaking, he's been a dove, you know? It's to a point where like they didn't even talk about foreign policy in any of the debates. It's kind of a miracle.
Yep. No new conflicts, which is good. Winding down
over the last several months.
Winding down existing ones. And they were so desperate to do that. Like that one bomb that they dropped on Iran, they were saying it was World War III. Remember?
Was that the mother of all bombs, the Moab or something?
Maybe. But
that was years ago.
No, that was the beginning of 2020.
Oh, then I'm thinking of something else. Maybe I'm thinking of Afghanistan.
Yeah, like in early 2020, they said World War III happened, and like the highest casualties from that were the memes. Like my buddy sent me one. It's like, how can I focus on World War III when I'm focused on World War Me? And just like all these like ridiculous things. And then they wonder why people didn't like take people or the media report seriously about COVID at first, because they'd literally just spent the last 4 years undermining their own credibility on basically everything. Like I still remember when CNN like tried to fact check Trump posting that picture of him giving the Medal of Honor to that dog. And it's just like, come on, guys, if you can't even be decent about something like that, then right. It's just like, I'm just going to totally dismiss everything that you have to say about anything, because that was clearly Photoshopped. And just like, you couldn't even say, okay, Trump has funny Photoshop of dog and be begrudging about it. You can even not like it, but you can say, you don't have to like try and fact check it and say that he's lying to the American people when clearly everybody knew it was a joke.
Yeah, you could, there's another choice. You could ignore it and just move on with life. I mean, that's another thing to be grateful for, actually, is Isaac, as you brought up, is that he, he didn't start wars and break things all over the world. Like I was thinking just the other day, Hillary Clinton saying about Libya, which, we had, what was the justification for that? And she bragged about it. She laughed about it. We came, we saw, he died. And just so flippant, and had, basically Trump just came in, immediately smashed ISIS, which, that was never mentioned in anything. We have, no one's thought about ISIS for 4 years, because
if there's an in memoriam, at the end of 2020, ISIS should be like the first one.
That's right. But what Trump has done is it broke. He broke everything. He broke the media. CNN. Everybody is just, our entire media has been exposed as being corrupt, not just incompetent, not just biased, corrupt. Legitimately corrupt, and like unbelievably like hypocritical, like the embracing of people like John Bolton and like during the Trump administration. I do not get it. I don't get it. They like wanted to hang this guy for war crimes like several years ago, and now it's like because he came out with an anti-Trump book, he's like God. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Yes. What's funny is that the media, they've already moved on from Trump. In their eyes, this election is already over. It's already been certified. Biden is the president-elect. You see him there. He even has a signet, as they would say on Game of Thrones, the office of the president-elect. So it's all over. But the media, and I think a lot of the media think that they're just going to be able to go back to normal, that they're going to pretend the last 4 years never happened, that they're going to have their prestige and their respect among Americans again. And I think a lot of the Democrats and the left think this too. It's like, hey, you just destroyed everything. We don't just pretend it didn't happen and we just go back to normal. You don't burn down your house of credibility and then say, oh no, that's not a pile of ashes. That's our house. That's the house. Let's go back inside. It's too late, man.
Oh yeah.
If you think America is going to go back to normal, and you think that the American people are going to trust you again just because you got the bad orange man out of the White House, no, that's over. I think our media is over. I think there's no going back. I mean, Fox News has already pretty much destroyed its credibility with the way they handled the election. They're getting smoked by CNN and MSNBC now in almost every hour, except for Tucker and the Five. They're getting crushed.
That's not going to last long. If Trump loses and he is out of the media, perspective, no one's watching CNN and MSNBC anymore. Like, who cares? It's like, yeah. The big bad guy is done. So we're going to care about what Mitch McConnell has to say. I can't imagine that your CNN viewer is going to keep paying attention after Orange Man Bad is gone. So, what else, Isaac? We're kind of putting together a little list of things that, like, I mean, obviously there's plenty of stuff conservatives should be grateful for under the Trump administration. I mean, we could talk about that for a whole while.
Sure.
But you wanted to pay attention to a specific angle of just like how ungrateful liberals were during this last 4 years. So
ungrateful libs. Well, the war thing to me is the big one, right?
Sure.
Like, to me, that was the one thing, like growing up in the Bush era and being in college or in high school and having everybody be like, oh, Republicans are baby killers, blah, blah, blah. And then having that completely disappear as a thing that they cared about during the Obama years when they were arming the Muslim Brotherhood and creating ISIS and still doing regime change, same foreign policy, just different party. And for them to just completely stop caring about that.
Yeah.
Like,
whatever happened to the code pink during those years,
Do you remember those bumper stickers that were so stupid, but it was like an odometer and it had Iraq in there, but it was rolling over to an N and Iran is next. And I remember like my high school history teacher was convinced that they were going to bring in the draft and start a theocracy in the United States as a result of Bush winning a second term. I just remember how triggered they were as a result of that. But I think another thing that we were talking about is like, why didn't he get any credit for this is the low unemployment rates and record increasing in wealth for, low income groups, minorities, and, lowest unemployment rate for women, Black, Latino. And I mean, we saw that actually matter a little bit in the election because they were more likely to support him than they were previously. But the liberals that say that they want this all the time were completely willing to discount or just dismiss the fact that he produced real results for people that needed it. And they had 8 years to do it and they just didn't.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I mean, it certainly wasn't lack of trying. Like that was like one of the common refrains from Donald Trump throughout the last, before COVID really kind of negated all of that stuff, was to repeat those facts over and over and over again. But yeah, didn't get any traction because that would make him look good. We can't talk about that. The media can't talk about that. But I don't know, Jim, why, other than media conspiracy, why wasn't that talked about more?
Well, we know, the media conspiracy, that's why, because anything that made Trump look good was memory hold, was suppressed. And I mean, that's why, Trump is Twitter's most important customer. It's actually, I find it interesting to see what's going to happen with Twitter and its stock price and its user base when the president of the United States could no longer be Donald Trump, using it as a platform to go around the media and talk about his accomplishments. Because if it wasn't for his ability to do that, who knows where he would, could it be worse? I mean, it's hard to think that Trump's media coverage and place and culture could be worse if he isn't able to speak on his own and go around the media. But it's amazing that we hadn't had a supply side economist thinking president this true to it since Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump, he did two things immediately upon coming into office. Internationally, he smashed ISIS. Domestically, he cut taxes and slashed regulations. And he famously had that policy that he wanted to, I don't remember what the number was. I think his mandate was to eliminate 20 regulations before you propose a single new one.
It was supposed to be 2-1, but he ended up doing like 8-1 or something like that. Yeah.
All right. So it's amazing what can happen in the American economy when you get the government out of the damn way, and when you release more capital by cutting taxes and allowing businesses and individuals to invest in the market, invest in their businesses, and expand. And then you add to that, there's not protectionist policies for a libertarian think tank. That's kind of it's kind of a complicated issue. Let's just say that. But his at least mentality of America first, of putting the American worker first, of putting the American economy first, of putting American priorities first over the world stage, those things had real impacts on people down on the ground in their lives. That's why the unemployment rate was so low. This was the recovery we were supposed to have after coming out of the 2008 financial crisis through the housing bubble burst, but we didn't get that. We had barely limping. We limped along. We were barely breathing as far as an economic recovery was concerned. During the entire Obama years, and as soon as Trump did what should be done in those sorts of things, where you deregulate, that you cut taxes, that you release capital into the economy, we boomed, and we had never seen unemployment rates this low. We had never seen job growth this great. And then just one last thing about the economy that we should all be grateful for, that Donald Trump was able to unleash before COVID. Right before the election, again, something that was hardly ever reported by the media, was that we had an enormous 31% recovery rate in the third quarter, 31% growth in the economy, in the GDP in the third quarter. Annualized, right. Still, that is still, whether you want to annualize it or quarterize it, it doesn't matter. It's still one of the most remarkable economic numbers of anyone's lifetime. And that was hardly ever mentioned. And the reason we were able to come back is because of the groundwork, the base that Donald Trump was able to build in the economy before COVID hit.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure that there's plenty of libertarian type people that are listening to this and being like, he just like added some little things here and there. There's still some major structural problems with the United States economy, which, granted. But one of the things that like really annoys me all the time is when like the left liberals try to say that like any of the successes that Donald Trump has had economically could be attributed to Barack Obama.
Yeah, they do that all the time too. It was like, he doesn't have a magic wand, and then all of a sudden he's like, I did that.
Right. That was my magic wand. I left it in the desk.
Yeah, it's just like, seriously, point to something that that Barack Obama did that like specifically helped the economy. Because like Jim, you just did like a whole list of things that like Donald Trump did. Corporate income tax cuts, regular tax cuts, getting rid of the penalty for not having insurance, a whole litany of things, deregulation, all of that stuff, like that we could show that like there is a million think tanks that show that like that type of action helps the economy. It's like, but what did Barack Obama do? Find you for not having health insurance? That's supposed to help the economy? Like, come on.
Implemented policies that would cause electricity prices to necessarily skyrocket. Right. It's just like everything they did put America last, and we're going to go back to that, unfortunately, right? So I think it's funny how we're bashing libertarians, because I think that most of us would, identify mostly as that, at least from like an ideological perspective.
Sure.
But I did get real triggered when I listened to like the Reason Roundtable talking about like who they were going to vote for. And they're like, I'm voting for Biden. I was like, how can you do that? Yeah, most of them did. They either voted for Joe or Biden, and Joe
Jorgensen.
Joe
right?
Jorgensen. But we were talking about something, but I just got totally sidetracked by.
No, we're just talking about the what Trump did to help the economy.
Yeah, and like the deficit is bad, right? And I don't love the fact that he expanded the size of the military in order to just dole out favors to the military industrial complex, basically make work programs, right? So he did not.
Federal Reserve and how we have like zero interest rates still, or near zero interest rates. I mean, those are like some really structural problems. I wasn't saying that to bash on libertarians. I was just saying, like, I was acknowledging that, yes, there are still some very, very flaws in our structure for sure.
Well, right.
that eventually have to be addressed. I get that. But like,
yes, the
actions that Donald Trump did definitely have some positive effect on the economy.
Yep, I agree. And I don't understand how they could rationalize the Biden vote and say that they're going to get more of what they want from that, or that they're going to somehow get closer to where they think we ought to be. Like it's easy to look at somebody and say, look, I don't agree with the last 10 things that you did, but it's harder to conceptualize the 20 things that somebody else might do. And I think that they fell prey to that.
Right. Let's see.
I just want to add on to that. What Isaac said. It's like if you think that Trump didn't do anything to help this economy, just wait to see what Biden's policies are going to do to the economy.
See, but the thing is,
if it was so easy, why didn't Obama do it? Obama didn't do it because he doesn't want. He's not interested, as he said, Isaac, in really American greatness. He's not interested in that, and America is going to be second on the world stage. They cannot wait. But Joe Biden cannot wait to get his foreign diplomats out there to bow and scrape to the world community and apologize. They will spend 4 years apologizing for Donald Trump for putting America first. And the people don't think that, but the elites in our country do. And just one last thing about the economy. You wonder, what did Obama do to help the economy? If you look, the black unemployment rate was the lowest ever recorded under Donald Trump's presidency, and income inequality, which is extremely important, supposedly to the left, shrunk under Trump and grew under Obama. So, and will probably grow again under Biden.
Yeah, no, I will, and maybe this goes to the Reason Roundtable thing that you were talking about there, but like definitely to just people watching this, listening to this. If you are like waiting to say, I told you so, like never do that in politics, because there's going to be enough spin time for them to twist whatever realities are there to fit their narrative. It's always going to happen. So if Biden comes in and the economy tanks again, and like maybe we'll try to say that it's because of certain things that Biden did, surely they're going to say, no, this is just legacy things that are the result of Trump's policies, over the last 4 years. It's going to happen.
I think Biden's actually going to benefit a lot from what Trump did. And if the Senate stays in the hands of the Republicans, he's not going to have a lot of opportunities to screw it up. So that's good for the country.
I don't know. They've been talking about executive orders a whole lot.
Well, that's true. That's the only thing that they really can do, right? But
it's not an only thing. Like there are some massive things that they're talking about. I mean, there was somebody that I think it was Elizabeth Warren was just talking about how with a stroke of the pen, we can like cancel out trillions of dollars of school debt and stuff like that.
Student loan debt. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So, I mean, the power of the executive order shouldn't be brushed off.
Yes, I agree with that. But they can't undo the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. They can't undo a lot of the legislation that Trump did. They can scale it back. They can find ways to poke holes in it and try and bleed it out through a death of 1,000 cuts. And, that's the good reason to scale back power from the executive that nobody ever does, right? Everybody just uses the executive to get what they want while they're in office. And then, the next time that the other party's in office, they get even more of what they want. So,
for all the talk of Donald Trump being some sort of tyrant and would-be dictator, he didn't. When he did issue executive orders, almost all of them were to undo the executive orders of the previous president, not to impose policy
until COVID.
Until COVID, right? But you got to put that aside. Everything changed. Everything got crazy after COVID, and we're still dealing with the tyrannies of COVID.
No free passes for COVID.
No, you're right. But just putting that aside for the sake of this argument, though. But
sure.
most of his executive orders were reversing the executive orders, which was policy by fiat implemented by Barack Obama. And so I kind of disagree with you here, Isaac. I think that Biden. The Biden-Harris administration can quickly reverse the prosperity base that was put down by the Trump administration and his policies, because what was it Harris who said and Biden who has said the first thing I'm going to do, there's a list of about 100 first things they're going to do, but one of the things they're going to do early is it suggests raising taxes again. They think the corporate tax rate is too low. When it's just really competitive, maybe slightly better in competition with much of the industrialized world, which is a good thing.
Still lower than Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, which are the countries that they always talk about as the socialist paradises.
Right. So they're going to raise the corporate tax rate. They're going to raise personal income tax rates. So there are things that they can do. It's just a matter of, again, whether the Senate stays in the hands of the Republicans, whether they can either mitigate some of the economic damage that would be done by such policies or not. They should stop it altogether, I would hope. But, you never know in the Senate. There's a lot of squishies in there.
Yeah. So there's a couple of other things that we could talk about here that the ungrateful left hasn't addressed. This one probably not so much, but there's definitely an angle, which is the concept of CO2 emissions. So I'm going to kind of throw this to you, Isaac, because I mean, one of the big things that the Obama administration did was kind of got us all tangled up in the whole Paris climate treaty BS.
Accord. It's not a treaty because the Senate never ratified it, Donald.
Okay, climate
Get
Paris
it straight.
Accord treaty thing, yeah. So, and then like
basically the Breakfast Club, yeah.
The whole talking point after that was that even though we are pulled out of that accord, we still have lowering CO2 emissions than all of the countries that stayed in it. Now, go ahead, Isaac. I mean, you could explain why that's the case better than I can.
Sure. I mean, it's a combination of a lot of things, but hydraulic fracturing for natural gas is the largest difference between our policy and the policies of other countries. Germany has banned fracking. I think France banned fracking. They are maybe doing some in England now. I'm not sure what the status is on that. But basically, we created an industry, the fracking industry, that has made the United States the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas in the entire world. And that has brought down the price of oil. It was like $114 in September of 2014. And now oil's at like $45 a barrel. Right. We are the largest producer of natural gas. And that has allowed us to shift from coal to gas in some areas where it's economically feasible to, build a brand new gas plant and generate electricity from it close to where the gas is produced. And burning natural gas emits half the CO2 of burning coal. So there are a lot of distortions in the market that are, shoving coal out. Like a lot of those regulations that Obama implemented are still having a negative impact on those coal plants. So it isn't just a free market success, but the success of the free market made the, emissions reductions more feasible or more tolerable for sure.
Yeah, I know this is something I've said on this podcast before, but like it still just amazes me. It's just the concept of like the United States becoming energy independent.
Yep.
Right. This was like a thing that I seriously remember like hearing as a toddler, like playing with my like action figures on the table. And then in the background, it's like my parents watching the news.
Yeah. Energy independence, man. Just coming over and like fighting with a Saudi Shah or something like that.
Not quite, but there's politicians on the TV promising that like if they're elected, they're going to usher in an era of American energy independence.
Yeah.
And it was just this thing that I remember. It's just like it always
that was Will
in my
Ferrell
head.
On SNL, by the way.
Maybe.
When Will Ferrell was president, you remember that?
I do, yeah.
We're addicted to oil.
But it was always this thing that just like in my head, it's always just been associated with one of these empty promises that you'll hear only during election time, and it's got no chance of actually being a reality. And then it became a reality. Like it blows me away that something like that it just was just like this empty promise actually happened now. It blows me away.
It was completely for the other reasons that Obama said, and it did start under him, but it was only because he couldn't stop it. He did a lot of, but that's it, right? Because a lot of the fracking happens on private land, and that's all regulated by the states, and he doesn't have a say in whether they develop those resources or not. But he's the guy that said you can't drill your way to lower oil prices. Like that was one of his talking points. His energy policy was put more air in your tires so you get better gas mileage. Like so stupid. And that was by design, though, right? They didn't want any more oil or gas, so they were willing to accept this theory that we had no way of extracting these resources economically. But yeah, the Trump administration did a lot of good for the energy industry, and it was mostly just approving pipelines, allowing these like the oil producers in North Dakota to move their product to market more efficiently and more cost effectively. So those are the things that are going to get tied up a lot by the Obama administration. And I know this is kind of a tangent, but basically they will use the administrative state to grind the permitting process for a lot of these things to a halt. Right. And that is the unfortunate thing when it comes to like it shouldn't matter who the president is for a project to get approved if you meet all the environmental standards that are on the books. But that's just not the way. It's not the world we live in anymore.
Yeah, as you said, Isaac, Obama couldn't do anything pretty much to stop. He could do some, but he couldn't do a lot to stop the fracking on private land, which increased the amount of oil and natural gas to the market, which lowered prices. But we didn't get to be energy independent until Trump got, again, the federal government out of the way, and we started fracking on public lands. And that is what got us over the hump into full energy independence. And again, Joe Biden says he's going to put a stop to that immediately when he comes into office. So that's another accomplishment, which is a good thing. It's a good thing in so many ways for America. And in fact, you tie back into the Paris Accord. We got out of the Paris Accord, and the entire world, shook their finger at us, and they said shame, and they said you're killing the planet by doing this. And we beat all of the other signees. As far as reducing carbon dioxide emissions, if you care about that, then all the ones that signed the agreement, not the treaty. And that's because of the fracking revolution, because natural gas burns much more efficiently and cleaner than coal does. And we've converted so many power plants in the United States to natural gas because it's easy to get. Now in the United States, we can get it right here. You don't have to import it. The fact that we're exporting natural gas around the world is something that wasn't even legal to do. We weren't permitted to do it because we didn't want to run out of our own natural gas. Now we have so much that we're exporting it internationally, which again, Donald Trump had to make sure that could happen. These things are real accomplishments that have real impact on real lives here in America, and they're all going to be rolled back if Biden is president in a few months.
Well, if you're going to buy the energy anyway, you might as well buy it from an American producer, right?
That's right.
So that's the thing. Exporting our energy production to other countries is just giving them more of our own money. So, made in American energy is a huge benefit to everybody here because you have that multiplier effect. They're high paying jobs. They support people in the local economy. They put more supply jobs to work, the indirect jobs, more steel workers and everything. So those are the people that are going to get hit hardest. And I don't know if those folks actually understand that. New Mexico went for Biden, and New Mexico has tons of oil and gas development on federal land. Pennsylvania did not go as hard for Trump as they needed to in order for him to win. So, I think that a lot of this was just people got complacent with, before COVID, things were really good. And I think that COVID gave a lot of people who didn't want to vote for him because they didn't like Trump's personality an excuse not to do it. But 4 years from now, we'll see if the policies that are enacted hurt people enough for them to change their mind. And that's basically where we're going to, leave off.
The most important question a politician usually asks voters is especially running for president, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Trump's messaging didn't quite get to that. And his messaging was impossible to discipline and to corral. And that's, you take the good with the bad. He got elected because he's Trump, and there's difficulties with him because he's Trump. You have to take it all as one package. But that will be a very good question in 2024. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? In fact, there was actually polling. This is something that is just amazing to me that wasn't communicated better through the Trump administration. They conducted polls and asked people, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Even during even during COVID at its peak, and people still said yes. But that wasn't communicated. They weren't convinced to say, look, there's two stages to that message. One is to make sure people realize that they are better off economically and in many other ways than they were 4 years ago. The second half of that message is that if you change horses, if you change presidents, you're not going to be as well off as you were 4 years ago. The presidency matters. The direction of the country matters. And so you can't just assume that a Biden presidency will continue the prosperity that you've enjoyed for the last 4 years, because it won't. It just won't.
Isaac, do you think it's kind of unfair of me to say that the left is ungrateful for the CO2 emissions dropping? Because that is, as Jim would say, if you care about that type of thing, because obviously it's to the benefit of, that could be the reasoning for that is the embracing of natural gas as opposed to some of the energies that they actually want to see proliferate, like wind and solar.
No, that's not unfair. They're totally ungrateful. They just don't like fossil fuels, and they want any excuse to get rid of them because they perceive them as being their political enemies. And that's not everybody, but I think that for the really hardcore Green New Dealers, that's exactly what it is. They see American energy development as a way of stopping American energy development, of curbing capitalism, right? They think that it's all a problem with capitalism and we need to build all these wind and solar facilities and we'll eventually live in a worker's paradise. So No, they should be grateful for that. And the fact that they don't care at all shows that they never really cared at all about the emissions. If you cared about emissions, you'd be saying, look, we need to keep these nuclear power plants open, except they cheer whenever that happens. They're not saying we need to build new nuclear power plants unless you're Michael Schellenberger. So, the nod to sanity that Kerry did the other day, where he's like, oh, I guess nuclear is okay now,
he said that?
Yeah, I guess I saw like a 4-second clip on somebody's Instagram that said that. So don't quote me, folks. Don't quote me, folks. But it's all convenient. I mean, the nuclear crowd, there's a few people I know who are very liberal, but they're pro-nuclear. And I said, well, you got to vote for POTUS because he's been way more pro-nuclear than Obama ever was. And they got so triggered by that. But they're like, yeah, but Biden's energy plan says he's going to give some R&D dollars to nuclear. I'm like, no, but he wants to spend $2 trillion deploying wind and solar. And you're going to get like a $500 million grant for something? Like, no, like what you need is that much money spent deploying new nuclear reactors. And all of a sudden we're 100% carbon free. And you can even look at, doing carbon-free hydrogen or something like that. Like nuclear would actually work, but they never care about building the things that actually work because they hate anything that works.
Yeah, the electrification of our energy sector is possible, and maybe it's desirable. I'm not so sure about that, and I don't think you can fully electrify everything. But you can't want to do that and also support I think we can do it on wind and solar, as everyone on
that's California.
Yeah, that's what California. So California is what the nation could become if they want to impose this across the country in a Biden-Harris administration. But Isaac, the environmental left is not grateful for the reduction in CO2 emissions because they're not really all that interested in CO2 emission reductions, to be honest. They're interested in control. Because if they were interested in the CO2 emissions, they would say that, okay, we should convert to natural gas for the next. They should have a plan, a real plan, not a fantasy unicorn milk plan, but the idea that look, we'll reduce our CO2 emissions to avoid the catastrophe of temperatures rising by 1.2 degrees Celsius by 2100, and we'll do natural gas, and we'll get rid of all the coal plants, but we'll convert all to natural gas, and then we'll do that for the next 50 years, and we'll use the prosperity that we will continue to enjoy through the use of natural gas and a reliable energy grid to move on to the next generation, whether it's micro nuclear plants instead of the big ones like 3 Mile Island and all that stuff. There's lots of different technologies that are in experimental stages right now. Invest in that sort of thing so that you can get to that electric future that you keep talking about. But there's this obsession with solar and wind. It's like it's a child's obsession. It's the idea that wind is free and the sun is free and it's so clean and we can do it. It's just all fantasy land. And if one thing I could be grateful and thankful for the next 4 years is that we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about on that subject for the next 4 years.
It reminds me of that meme of the hippie that's like takes drugs made out of a bathtub at a music festival. And it's like, won't take pharmaceuticals because profit.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things that like the left was ungrateful for under a Trump administration is like, I really think that Trump would make deals with anybody.
Yes.
And it was just because he became so toxic and untouchable as like as a political figure that they had to shun anything that was good that came out of him. You couldn't even talk with him, that they've just like cut themselves off for 4 years. And Trump's like, okay, well, if I can't do any business with you, then I'll just spike footballs on you,
right.
every chance I can get. And I think the perfect example of that is the criminal justice reform.
Yes.
I mean, that was like Kim Kardashian, right? I think it was Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, it was.
Like going to the White House and having conversations with him. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we can get some of that done. Yeah, I'll get support behind that. It's just like, I think there was limitless stuff. If people just like actually tried to like stroke his ego a little bit, like I think that he would come around on a million different things.
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you, greatest prisons ever.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's people have to remember a couple of things. Is there's going to be a lot of reminiscing about the first Trump term, and if you remember when he got into office, despite all the harassment from the deep state and all of that other stuff, just politically, it took him about 6 months, 8 months to basically get Republicans to stop walking away from him. I mean, the Republicans in the Senate, especially, were distancing themselves from him, saying, "I don't know about him and his policies." He had no friends. There was a golden missed opportunity by either moderate Democrats or others to work directly with Trump on things. One of the biggest worries conservatives had when they threw their lot in with him in 2016 was that he's not a real conservative.
Right.
He doesn't have a conservative record. He was a Democrat 30 minutes ago, and now he's the Republican president of the United States. People were worried sick about what would actually happen, and actually,
dang right he is.
And the hard left, and the fact that he had few friends among the Republican establishment made it that he had to turn around and embrace his only friends, who were the conservatives and the MAGAs out there in the world. They could have had, a real, like a very moderate Republican president who could have gotten things done and frankly sold moderation to his own base. But they couldn't do it. No. They just couldn't accept the bad orange man. They had to get him out. They hated him. Yeah, and they still hate him.
They could have gotten so much. I mean, he talked about wanting to do like big infrastructure plans.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even most recently with like the whole platinum plan thing to like help inner cities and all of that. Like all of this, it was nope, absolutely untouchable. We can't be seen as the politician that's reaching across the aisle to this guy. Whereas like if they were to embrace that over those 4 years, they could have gotten so much done. I guarantee they could have.
But that would have legitimized him as president of the United States, and they still don't consider him a legitimate president of the United States.
It seems like a giant tactical error to just like throw 4 years just down the drain so that we could hope to get Joe Biden as president in 2020. What a joke. What an absolute joke that was.
Well, it worked.
Strategy.
It worked, didn't it?
No, because then 4 years went by and we got all of this good stuff instead, because of them just like seeing him as this toxic human being. So then he's just like, all right, well then I guess the only support I'm going to get is on the right side of the aisle. So I'm going to go full bore that way. And then we got all this great stuff from him. So yeah, tactical error on their side. Totally bad. Totally bad idea. Isaac, any other grateful stuff we should be grateful for, or stuff that the left was ungrateful for? What do you think? I got a big one.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
He beat Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on.
Lock her up, baby.
Not only was that fantastic for our side of things, because, she's seen as crooked Hillary, most corrupt politician, like, in history running for president, but the left should be grateful, too, because they got saved from her being the head of the party for the next 4 to 8 years. So,
well, they got Biden.
I guess, but he just seems like a milquetoast, watered down version of Barack Obama, not a horrible nightmare creature like Hillary Clinton. So.
Well, right, and that's why he won, right?
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have to listen to that voice
Ooh.
for 4 years. I may have unplugged from cable a lot sooner if she was president. Just to
we might be stuck with Kamala Harris, though.
Yeah, Kamala Harris has a nice voice too. But yeah, defeating Hillary Clinton was no small thing. And, I remember saying it at the time and thinking it immediately after the 2016 election. The only candidate who could have beaten Hillary Clinton was Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton would have
beaten. I don't believe that.
I believe it.
I think anybody could have beaten Hillary.
I don't think so.
Especially after they did Bernie so dirty.
Yeah. They did Bernie real dirty. Yeah. I think that if any other Republican had been elected and accomplished the things that Trump accomplished over the last 4 years, they would have won.
Well, you're probably right about that. And we intentionally didn't want to get into some of the irregularities of this election. And I don't want to get letters from people, emails from people, and in the comments, please be gentle. But the idea that we're talking about Biden as if I'm not really the president-elect right now.
Every time you mention it, I've been shaking my head. Let the record show.
Yeah, well, I can't see that on the podcast. I still have forever hold your peace.
I still have faith. But this 2020 has been nothing short of just like a television show. And that television show gets a lot more interesting if Donald Trump upsets the whole world here and actually wins. So I'm still putting my money on Donald Trump pulling this one out.
We'll see. But
Don't tell Tim Benson.
Yeah, don't tell Tim Benson, the host of the illiteracy podcast here on Heartland's feeds. But look, Donald Trump got 10 more million votes than he did in 2016. He's the only incumbent president to get 10 million more votes than he did the election before and lose. I still find it extremely hard to believe that Joe Biden, who did not campaign, Joe Biden, who is about as exciting as a glass of warm milk, Joe Biden, who had no ideas, no new ideas, and didn't talk about anything. Joe Biden, who was stumbling over his words. Joe Biden, who had car rallies with that looked like they were in a, sometimes there were multiples of the same car in there. So maybe a car dealership just sent some people over there to fill it out a little bit. Meanwhile, Donald Trump had spontaneous parades and boat parades and caravans and 60,000 people in a suburban Pittsburgh location campaigning his butt off in hangars, but thousands of people, even despite COVID. And he still lost. And Biden got 80 million votes. I think that whole thing is really strange. And I think I hope we get to the bottom of it. I don't want to not believe it, but I want a plausible explanation. And I have yet to hear
the thing,
anything.
right? Like we hear like Rudy Giuliani sweating his like awful hair color down his face during the press conference. That lady who's now fired, I guess, I don't know. Like
Sidney Powell.
Is
she wasn't. I don't think she was fired, but that's a whole other story.
Well, like they're distancing themselves.
She's always been working alongside them, but she's not a part of that. Whatever. But
whatever. It doesn't matter.
Show me the evidence.
Yeah.
Right. And like none of that. It's all been talk. It's all talk, no action.
Well,
right.
Let's see.
So like, I would be very happy if they were able to like prove it. And
it'll be the most 2020 thing to ever 2020.
Yes,
2020.
It would. Wouldn't it, Donald?
It would be. It would be.
Like trust but verify, correct? I mean, this whole,
of course.
And
it'll come out eventually. We'll see.
So many people are like, "Oh, you're a traitor to your country if you think that Donald Trump didn't lose or didn't win." And it's just like, well, like I'm hopeful, but like you really gotta show me.
Well, that's the thing. Like, do I believe that this election was shady and probably stolen? Yes. Do I think they're going to be able to like prove it and in court and have all of this overturned? That one I'm not so sure of. We'll see.
Yeah. I just want to. I've said this, the last 4 podcasts. I just want an explanation. I saw the other day from I think a screenshot from the Michigan election website that showed that there was a precinct in the city of Detroit that had a 350% turnout rate. Now, is it possible that on same-day registration and mail-in ballots that you get 3 times the number of people even eligible to vote in a precinct casting ballots legally and legitimately? I suppose it's possible, but I would like an explanation. I would like to see that those votes were audited and that this is legit. And those kinds of anomalies are all over the country, and we're getting nothing. We're getting no explanations. And actually, the media should be looking into these things. Can you imagine, just for a minute, if Donald Trump had won the election and all of these anomalies had turned out in his favor in all these cities? Would the media just be saying, re-up President
you're a
Trump?
Conspiracy theorist if you think that there's nothing, if there's something illegitimate going on. You're a conspiracy theorist.
Right. But if it was reversed, this country would be in an uproar. We would have riots in the streets right now, actually, if Trump had won in these suspicious circumstances. So, I just want a freaking explanation. That's it. And I don't know if we're ever going to get one. I
mean, the silver lining to Biden winning is like potentially 4 years of just like him stumbling and like struggling to talk.
Dude, do you think Corn Pop will get appointed to the cabinet position?
Did you see the deep fake video of Joe Biden's? Hey, it's Joey B, vice principal of Brock Toboggan.
Oh no!
Oh, it's so good. I'll send it to you.
Put a link to it in the show notes.
There was an amazing Babylon Bee headline that says Biden considers putting Metamucil in his cabinet.
Oh, there's just going to be unlimited that stuff. Gosh. Yeah. Something to be grateful for, I guess. Come around, circle around, complete the circle on this episode of the In the Tank podcast. Gentlemen, any other words of wisdom?
Yes, I'm thankful Justin wasn't on the show today.
Unfollow him on Twitter.
No, that just didn't work, unfortunately. Report Justin on Twitter.
Well, this
Yeah.
video is getting
We got to
reported.
deplatform
This,
Justin.
yeah. This whole video is getting. We've used the word COVID. We've talked about the election not being legit. This thing is going to be suppressed big time on YouTube. So share with your friends. Don't let YouTube and Twitter and all the rest of social media people put this down.
Yeah, good point. Good point. We never seemingly find our way into their algorithm. You have to do it yourself. You have to like the videos. You have to share them. You have to subscribe. But yep, that'll pretty much do it for this episode of the In the Tank podcast. If you like our show, please subscribe, write a review for us on Twitter. It'd be greatly appreciated. You can find our podcast on pretty much everything: Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, iTunes, like I said, pretty much everything nowadays. If you'd like, you can follow us on Twitter at In the Tank Pod, socialist Twitter, that is. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Isaac Orr, where can the fine people find you?
At the fracking guy on Twitter and Parler, but I'm never on Parler because you got to work on your user interface, dudes.
Jim Lakely, same question. Where can the fine people find you?
You can find me at Jay Lakely on Twitter. You can also follow the Heartland Institute at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and always go to heartland.org.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you